So just to give you a high level, we are a volunteer group. These are the members that form the steering committee. You can see some of their backgrounds and their areas of expertise. We've been doing this. You can go on to the next slide, Tom. Our purpose really is as a volunteer group just to bring people together. It comes really from if everyone wants to hear the long story, you can always reach out to me, but it comes from a passion for higher ed and a desire to really give back. We started in May of 2017. Since then, we've had about 25 different events. We have, at this point, close to 900 members. That number is actually higher than the 870. We got approximately 100 members from additional members from this meetup event alone. We have over time focused on general topics for higher ed IT professionals. However, more recently, we've been focusing on the problems and the issues that tech leaders in higher ed face. And that's represented here in the panelists, as you'll see in a moment. And again, if you ever want to get involved and either participate as a panelist or contribute in any other way, don't hesitate to reach out. Next slide, Tom. So we went over these basics. Again, as a reminder, we're just here to help each other. So if there are any salespeople in the room, this is not about that. So, Tom, any other slides? I think that's it. Well, we've got a number of panelists here with us. I am going to call on each one at a time, and they will provide just a very, very brief introduction and background on who they are, and also their angle, their thoughts briefly on AI and the future of AI within higher ed. And then we will go and ask them a few questions, and then we will open up to discussion. And we really want to make the discussion the most the time that we spend the most in discussion, because that's where a lot of value comes in. So why don't we start with David LaPorte.
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave LaPorte. I'm Senior Director for Integration and Innovation at Harvard. So in that role, I do a few things. I lead a few grant programs, but primarily it's been AI all the time since late 2022, as we all know. So my take on AI is, I went to school for computer science a little over 20 years ago. AI was certainly a thing back then, but didn't really think much of it. Took my AI class and didn't really think about it until, again, about December 2022, when I got a text from a friend of mine who said, "Hey, have you played with ChatGPT?" And that has been the last 2 years or so of my life. And yeah, looking forward to talking more today.
Thanks, David. And Ben?
Ben Gaucherin. I'm also a senior director at Harvard. My group, I would describe as Central IT, is supporting what I would describe as the city of Harvard University. So it's all the essentials, services you can imagine, from transportation to food to power plants and everything else. I'm going to describe myself as the old dog of AI, old because my life with AI started when I actually did my grad studies in AI back in Europe in late 80s, early 90s. And old dog because I don't get as excited today about AI developments as I used to once upon a time. I think this is a factor of having a little bit of time perspective, having seen a number of great deal of excitement about things and then some level of disappointment following. And as for experience with AI through my professional career, there are a number of technologies that have been put under the banner of AI. AI is sort of a weird term, and I'm hoping we get a chance to talk about that. But in the academic context or higher ed, had the opportunity to leverage machine learning back in 2015 when we started to do, I was one of two people on the Harvard side of edX. We leveraged machine learning for essay grading. or essay triaging. Also had to deal with ChatGPT as an instructor, rocking the assessment, sort of practices that we had, and then a lot of things on the administrative side. So looking forward to the talk today.
Thank you, Ben. And Frank?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Frank Hughes. I'm the CIO of Cape Cod Community College. It's interesting. I've been in my position for just under 2 years, and during my interview process, nobody talked about AI. The game changer in that case really was ChatGPT, infiltrating the schools, faculty, students. Everyone was all of a sudden talking about that early last year. I always go back to something I've said in my IT career. Darwin, he said, it's not the strongest that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. AI is becoming that change on college campuses. Now, I can't speak so much for the academic side. For the faculty side, I can assist them with looking for tools. I can assist them with acceptable use policies. But what I've really embraced and try to work with, along with our partners in cybersecurity here, is looking for those AI-driven bad actors. We've seen shifts in phishing. We've seen shifts in AI scams. They're able to manipulate emails much differently, build deceptive HTML, even mimic voices. So coming from an institution that was breached years ago before me, it's something that we are very aware of, and we just want to make sure that not just our faculty, not just our staff and our students, but everyone in the community is aware of the deceptive practices that we have to protect ourselves against this new threat out there. But from a faculty perspective, we're looking at a lot of different ways to use it, because we're on board that train. We see it coming, and there's no getting off now.
Thank you, Frank. And Lori?
Hi, I'm Lori Landay. I'm a professor of new media and visual culture at Berklee College of Music. And I also teach dance and technology at Boston Conservatory at Berklee. And so I work mostly with musicians, theater students, and dancers. I teach in the Liberal Arts and Sciences department, and I've got a new course that's called AI, Artifice, and Responsibility. And so I've been experimenting with different, AI tools with those students. That's a humanities course. And it's been interesting to see how the students have responded to these new opportunities and risks and fears about how AI is impacting their future and their present. I will say that having been reading student assignments for a long time now, this is my 23rd year at Berklee, that I've never read such terrible assignments, such terrible writing, because it's not the students who are writing it, it's ChatGPT or other large language models. And it's because they don't know how to use them, right? So, when we think about, using the word processor as something that is a tool for students to use. So I've been doing, and I have some resources I'll put in the chat later about how students can use, how they can learn how to prompt properly and, use things. And I'll talk more about this later. But, in general, there's so many possibilities and risks that need to be mitigated around these tools. When ChatGPT was released into the wild, I was on sabbatical at MIT in the Open Documentary Lab. And so I had the opportunity to really experiment with it, not only in my own artistic practice as a new media artist, but also to run all my assignments through it. So I have been doing a lot of work on both the artist side as well as the teacher side. And so I can't think of anything that has made as profound and also uncertain an impact, even as an early adopter of all kinds of technology in terms of teaching, learning, and artistic practice, as these AI tools.
Thank you, Lori. And to your point about sharing resources, that goes for anybody. You know, if you all have any resources that you feel are especially useful, feel free to dump a link right in chat. That would be very, very helpful. And last but not least, Sia, your turn.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Sia Najafi. I'm the Associate CIO for Worcester Polytechnic Institute. My number one task is academic and research computing and new technologies for WPI. WPI's IT is pretty centralized. We are part of the central IT. So we provide services to the whole school, which is heavily STEMmed, right? So the past 2 years, it's been our president's one of the highest priorities, which has been very useful to us, to be concentrating on AI as the top 3 priorities in every aspect of the university, from research to teaching to, infrastructure. So those are the things that we've been working on nonstop for the past 2 years. And, the goal from our point of view has been to be able to smooth out the implementation and the anxiety and the risks involved and maximize the priorities, and have committees that have faculty, staff, and everybody involved that can decide what's the correct path forward, and then have IT be as a conduit to a lot of departments and faculty that, how faculty work in silos. So a lot of people don't know what everybody else is doing, what are the best practices, what to avoid, commonalities of issues, right? So, so we collect a lot of the not only external resources, but also internally as well, and be able to share it with the community. Our students, as Lori mentioned, students show up with a lot of anxiety because they don't know if there are, some courses allow them to use ChatGPT heavily, others ban it permanently, so the students get caught in between here. And how do we alleviate some of the students' anxiety? What is campus-wide policy on, cheating and, using AI technologies? Can it be proven? Can it not be proven? So some of those things have been that we've been trying to put policies in from the policy point of view, and the infrastructure, of course, to me was it's been where IT does its best is from the infrastructure point of view. So I've been heavily involved in that with our group as well as from something that normally ITs don't do, but from training, for providing not only tools, but the training as well, how to use it, when to use it, when not to use it, right? Because a lot of times people have expectations of AI, which is not reasonable. These are not the things that AI can do, right? AI can't ask you to, okay, design an engine for me and deliver it tomorrow, right? That doesn't work. Or write this code this way, it doesn't work. Unless the parameters are clearly defined, you're not going to have success. So a lot of those things, we offer classes for faculty, students, and staff as well. And it's been very interesting that we have had very enthusiastic participation by staff, right? So, they're also looking at this as, productivity tools, right? To increase their own productivity and also gain additional knowledge and expertise. So that's my spiel on this, and thank you.
Thank you, Sia. And I do notice folks asking questions of other members of the conversation. And one I noticed was about policies. Feel free to do the same about anything else, right? Maybe the group can help you out if you have a specific question. I forgot to mention that my name is Nuno Couto. I'm one of the co-founders of the Meetup, and James Stoffel and Michael Ginsberg are also part of the steering committee. If you all want to wave, feel free. If not, no worries. Okay, so why don't we start with some questions, and then we'll go into some discussion, open discussion. David, why don't we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about how Harvard is encouraging innovation in the AI space?
Sure. So Harvard's a big place, a very decentralized place. So I speak from my vantage point, which is within our central IT organization, which is not the only IT organization, but within our area, we are encouraging the use of AI, and most specifically generative AI, but clearly there's machine learning and other technologies out there, through a few different avenues. One is through innovation programs. So 2 programs I co-facilitate are named ETIP, which is the Emerging Technology and Innovation Program, which is a program within our central IT group, which solicits ideas to improve processes, bring innovation to workflows, essentially ground up. We reach out to staff and solicit these proposals directly. Another one is called the AI Innovation Program, which is within our Executive Vice President area, which is kind of our central admin group. That program essentially pairs business users with business challenges with IT resources, both within our central IT group and also with strategic partners, to try to bring generative AI to task to solve some of these problems. So we've seen really great uptake on both programs. There's currently, within one of them just wrapped up, but about a month ago, there were 12 of those pilots running all at once, 11 of which were AI related. So that's one aspect. The other is tools. So we rolled out a tool we called the AI Sandbox back in September of 2023, which was essentially a multi-model, multi-provider tool to allow folks to work with OpenAI models, to work with Anthropic models in their day-to-day. We provided access to faculty and staff. And just recently on September 1st, we launched Sandbox 2.0, which is a new tool. It's based on the open source LibreChat project. And we've expanded the community to include students as well for schools that would like to participate. There's about 4,000 active users we've seen in the past 2 months, and we see about 1,000 users of that tool every day. So that number is organically growing. We have a nice Splunk dashboard which shows all that. So in that respect, it's sort of like osmosis. It's kind of seeping into folks' workflows, and more folks are adopting it organically.
Thank you, David. Due to time, I'm going to go on to the next question, but at the end, we can come back for any of the other panelists' comments on any of these questions. Ben, how about we ask you a question? You're a campus services guy. As you said, Harvard is a city. How do you think AI is going to impact operational efficiency in that area?
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, going back to my introduction, and David and I work together occasionally, but we're in very different corners. So my reality is, as mentioned, it's power plants, it's 26,000 meals a day, it's bus shuttles, it's everything you can imagine in this big city. I'd say there are 3 ways in which AI is helping or likely going to have a big impact. And I'll pause for a second to say I'm challenged by the term AI because unfortunately AI is too vague a term. There's not a globally accepted definition of this. And I don't know how many of you watch this, but in the media, just about everybody has put anything they wanted under the term AI, including things that don't seem to have anything to do with AI, or at least my experience of things. So I'll get off the soapbox. So for us, the 3 ways in which AI technologies may impact campus services or have impacted campus services. To start, a digital assistant, right? One of the things that we encourage people to do is engage with the technology. I think I want to go back to what Lori said earlier, right? It's an amazing tool. The developments in large language model and generative AI have been substantial, and personal experience in using these tools as a digital assistant help you do some research, help you think through things. Also understanding how you structure a prompt to get what you want. Also learning to not trust the AI, right? Not too long ago, some of the language models, if you asked who is the president of Harvard University, would tell you Larry Bacow, which is a little dated. So it's, appreciating the fact that the AI is not flawless. But if you learn that, then it can be a very powerful tool. And then the second area is in predictive models. So we've seen this, for example, in building management, the use of fall detection and diagnostics. It's the ability to take the data we collect from our building management systems to predict where things are starting to go bad early so we can address them more efficiently and then bring some efficiency, which, hopefully reduce the cost of operating building and maintenance. And then the third one, which I personally see as a much bigger opportunity for us, is the ability to use AI agents as part of business process automation. So we've had a bit of I'm going to call it a revival because I was selling these kinds of technologies 20 years ago. Business process automation, so you can map your workflow. And, in the world of Harvard, we use things like Microsoft Power Automate and other similar technologies. It's the ability to map out a workflow, and parts of the workflow can be executed by AI agents that will learn and perform certain tasks and get better at these tasks over time, right? Some people may have heard of robotic process automation, RPA. So we've done experimentation where we can do automatic ingestion of paper invoices that we still receive as paper invoices, and the ability to get those OCR'd and digested into systems, whereas before you would have required people to, enter that information by hand. So I mean, those are three areas that have started or show promise for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Lots of opportunities. Frank, why don't we come to you? What kind of challenges have you faced as you try to integrate AI at the community college level? And I know we talked about security before, but what are your thoughts?
Thank you for the question. So, yeah, the community college level is interesting because we are naturally resource poor. I have a small department. We have specific roles for every person. Suddenly, this thing, AI, came up in meeting after meeting with faculty, with staff, with administrators. So first, we had to understand what it was. And the biggest culprit that we had to learn, the biggest opportunity that we had to embrace was ChatGPT. Were we going to allow it on the campus? Was it going to become something that we accepted, or were we going to combat it? Were we going to find ways to find out if a student was using it as a method to cheat, to get a better score, to do this, to do that? And what we basically came up with is we have to accept it. And I think that was the right choice. Now, going back to our school itself, 2/3 of my faculty are adjuncts. They may teach one class. So one of the biggest problems that we have is catching them up to speed with what's happening with these new dynamics of education, especially when the students are coming in fairly savvy into this. So what we've had, and I've worked with, was our Learning Center, which is a group of teachers who help educate other faculty, along with a member of my department that's assistant instructional education for the school. So working with IT, working with this group of teachers, we've tried to reach out, build programs within our learning tool, Moodle, so that they can at least have an offline ability to learn where we're going, but also we hosted in-person classes. We've also been trying to show the faculty what the difference is between a large language model is and a small one, to judge the output. So we're allowing our students to use it. What we want them to do is be responsible for that output. We're teaching them how to get the resource, to footnote the AI. What we have planned, though, is we have to look at the future, the costs associated with this, with operating systems, Microsoft's operating system that will embrace AI. But all of that, we have a large workforce set of classes here. What do the employers want? So we're reaching out to the community. You want our students for XYZ courses, XYZ work. What are you expecting from them as they graduate? Are you expecting them to understand AI in its many faces, such as just simple operating systems? So we've really tried to work with our faculty community and with our administration just to kind of understand where we started from, and it's really a work in progress.
Thank you, Frank. That's an interesting perspective. different science schools obviously will have somewhat different issues and challenges. Lori,
Wear
why
many
don't
hats here.
Absolutely. Lori, why don't we come to you? You're at an interesting intersection of technology and teaching. So love to hear from you. How do you think AI is going to influence your classes, your education, and particularly in music and media, and just education in general?
Yeah, it's so profound, as I said earlier. I mean, it's already influencing music, dance, and media studies, performing arts. And I really heard what Ben was saying about automation, because I kind of got ahead of some of this area, because about maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I did a sabbatical project on animation and automation. And so I've really seen how a lot of what is now AI was what I was working on and studying then, and researching and practicing, was automation then. And the same thing is true in terms of music production and editing, video editing, post-production, and just across the board. A lot of the tools that we use that are now AI are actually has been sort of like a gradual, slow, algorithmic, procedural development, with these kinds of things in digital production, post-production, as I was saying. Some of the tools that I'm really interested in were already being explored by people like the dancer choreographer Bill T. Jones, when he did experiments with Google, with his PoseNet experiments with Maya Man, which were really, really interesting. And this idea of like multimodal, right? So all these kinds of things that now are so much more accessible by people, especially people who are not, computer scientists, people who are not programmers, people who are able to work in fields that, whether they're artistic practices or just any kind of field, that are not their own. We're so much more able to do interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary work, and go so much further with them because of these kinds of tools. When I was just at a workshop a couple of weeks ago, organized by the Meta Open Innovation AI research community, and it was focused on labor, like the impacts of AI on the labor force. And we all talked about it. Most of us were, at colleges and universities, faculty members, and we talked about it a lot. But what we didn't really talk about was what's going to happen to us, right? Which I thought about as I was on my way home, and I was like, like, it was very interesting that wasn't such I mean, I think it is a concern, but it's almost like a blind spot, that we kind of can't see as we focus on these other things. But the profound changes that that our institutions have to face, that we have to face as we think about every department, right? There was a lot of talk at that workshop about upskilling and reskilling, right? And that's true, of course, for faculty, right? And that's true for administrators. It's true for staff. I think there are so many questions and ideas that we're going to be faced with when we think about institutional approaches. How are we going to put people and teaching and learning first when some of the automation and procedural kinds of things are going to be really tempting to automate, right? I think it's going to be incredibly important for organizations like this to collaborate, work together, so that we can pool resources. Not every institution is going to have people who are experts and have expertise. Not every institution is going to have faculty who are going to have time and bandwidth to, upskill. So we're really going to have to pool our resources and reach out on local and regional and national levels. And people at better resourced institutions are going to have to help out community colleges and small liberal arts colleges as well, who won't have those kinds of resources. So like that seems like we're going to really have to think about this time of systemic change and how we're going to create everywhere cultural and practical environments that are going to help people upskill and reskill. I really do think it's huge, and that these human-centered approaches are just paramount. And so as we think about our decision making, both in individual classes and in departments and in institutions, that is the most important thing.
Thank you, Lori. Let's see what happens at the intersection of robotics and advanced language models when it comes to teaching. I suspect professors are not going away completely. See, last but certainly not least, we are running out of time, but we absolutely want to hear from you. In your experience, as you try to align your AI initiatives with the broader goals of the institution, how have you done that? What strategies have you used?
That's a very good question. We've been lucky that we have had from administrative vision from the top to proceed in this direction. A lot of times as IT, we see things and we try to act from the IT side is very difficult, but when it's coming from the president and you have the buy-in from the provost and the deans, and that just propagates, down, it's been a lot more, that effort is always successful. I always say IT is best leading from behind, right? So, those are the ones best accepted, I've always noticed that the faculty usually listen to only one group on campus, and that's students, right? Faculty don't listen to other people, and how do we strategically get to that, because our vision has been, okay, there's tons of opportunities here and tons of risks, okay? And our first goal is how do we empower our faculty to be able to at their leading edge of their research area and our teaching area as well, right? How do they use these tools successfully? Which tools? How do we help them choose? How do we guide them? Everybody there's all these tools that are available in the cloud, whatever they want to do. And it's very hard in academia because you don't have really control in academia. You have influence, right? And how do we exert that influence for people to share your vision, right? And be able to go from there, right? So those are the soft skills that's, it's very important in academia. And what we have been able to do is, we're trying to do is get the right tools for our students. I'm just saying that our students, we want to empower them to be able to compete globally in the global job market. As you know, they're not competing in their local area anymore. It's global, right? How do we get our faculty to be able to apply for the latest, most, and of course, the grants and proposals, as number of proposals goes like this, but the money usually is like this. How do we give our faculty a decisive edge, right? So, and then what about our staff? Those are the other concerns. Once we introduce them to these tools, every time, yesterday I was talking to Google and they say, oh, we have all these tools. And I look at it and I said, if I just introduce them like this into our campus, people think they're replacing jobs, right? So how do we bring that in so not be seen as a threat, right? So those are the areas that I think IT can play a big part into smoothing and guiding these transitions, and that's what I see in the short term and long term ahead for us. Of course, beside all the security issues that Frank and everybody else has expressed.
Your point about people being fearful, of course, is very valid, because right now we're not at a place where it's just generative AI. We're getting to a place where it's agentic AI, right? and not just one agent, but multiple agents working together to,
Right.
you know, to complete a goal. It's scary, but it's also very, very interesting and hopefully overall good for the world. Well, thank you all for the answers to the questions. I think we want to spend some time just getting some feedback or some questions from the audience. So we would like to open it up to that, an open discussion. Feel free to either raise your hand or put your question right in chat, and we will do the best we can to get to as many as we can. Tom, help me out if I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Sure. We also have some questions that were already brought up in chat. Um,
Sure, go ahead, Tom. What was
Sure.
feel free.
So we have, do any of the participants in their associated institutions have institutional-wide policies specifically for AI? This is from Russell B.
So we're drafting this. We work with a virtual cybersecurity office called Compass IT Compliance. When AI became more intrusive in our lives, we took our basic acceptable use policy and started to integrate with what AI is, what it could be, and what the school is looking for, working with someone who works with other institutions that can help guide us. You know, someone may have already started something, let's not reinvent the wheel, and then let's target it more for our particular audience.
All right, Ben, go ahead.
I was just going to add, go back to some of the comments that have been made about education to go along with the policy bit. The level of education across the size of community that we're dealing with at Harvard, and I think David's probably closer than I am to some of those efforts there, but I think some of you in the chat have mentioned, you know, the number of AI tools available online that people can just go and get and play with, getting people to understand the implications of what, you know, they can do with this and the risk they're taking, right? One of the biggest concern that keeps coming up regularly is regulated data or information that is internal to Harvard that people are more than happy to load into large language models. Now, thankfully, David and team have created a sandbox where we have access to multiple LLMs in a sort of walled off manner. We're protected from this, but the idea of getting an entire community, such as the community of Harvard, to understand that is just a mind-boggling thing for us.
Other questions?
We have one from Tatsuvic in chat asking, they're interested in how institutions leverage AI to collect student feedback, create focus areas for improvement, and general reports or insights based on that feedback. How is AI integrated into those processes?
Any of the panelists like to take this one, or even an audience member?
Go ahead, Sia.
So we do offer a lot of training sessions for students, and you know we have a large group of academic research computing group here at WPI interacts with tremendous number of students on campus, and you know we offer training sessions every week a few times on AI and about how to use these tools and how not to use it and when it's appropriate and what is their concerns and you know, and I think it's been very useful. The attendance has been through the roof by the students, you know, and they're really confused about, you know, how to use the tools when it's appropriate, what the tools can or cannot do, right? So everything from image processing to something as, you know, how to use LaTeX, using generally LaTeX code with you know, using AI and, you know, all machine learning, all these different things that, you know, that come up and they have unrealistic expectations, right? And On policies, just the last note was that we have academic use policy plus we have governance committees of faculty that come up with policies on acceptable use by students and faculty as well. So, and then there is the Committee on Information Technology Policies that actually campus-wide have drafted policies to address these issues.
Lori, you raised your hand as well.
I did, but I'm just going to answer this really quickly, and then Lauren also has their hand up. Canvas has some new AI features, or I don't know what else to call it, but things about like summarizing discussion, and like Zoom has some AI discussion summary features and things like that. So I think we're going to start seeing like an encroachment in that way.
Did someone else have them? Go ahead, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Reed. I work with Nuno over at Harvard Medical School. So glad that you're putting this on today. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear all of your predictions for where higher ed will be with AI in 5 years, or let's just have a round number and say by 2030. Right. And it'd be great to hear the rosy outlook, best case scenario, where you think we'll be, and then maybe also a worst case scenario of where we will be. Thanks.
If no one wants to go first, I'll go first. Or Sia, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I always, I'm old enough to remember MOOCs. And if you all remember MOOCs, where we were all afraid of MOOCs that's going to replace everybody, right? So the whole university system would be MOOCed, but it didn't happen. And I still think universities are very adaptive, and very, flexible. And I'm sure whatever comes in, we'll be able to adapt to it and actually be even more useful and productive, right? Most of our institutions, we have survived how many centuries? Harvard, WPI is over 150 years old. So there's a reason for that, and so that's why I'm optimistic.
Other thoughts on Lauren's question, either from the panelists or the audience?
Oh, we got plenty of hands. Go ahead, folks.
All right, there we go.
Frank, you were going to go next. Do you want to go?
So I was just going to briefly touch upon classroom technology and classroom experiences. I optimistically think that coming out of COVID, what I've seen is more students want options, want high flex options, hybrid options, remote learning options. And I think that AI might be able to support a lot of that for the students that might not be able to make it on campus, which also can help enrollment that can expand a school beyond their traditional borders. I know from 4Cs here, we have several students that are international now. And I mean, we're stuck behind these bridges on the Cape, and that would have been unheard of not too many years ago. So AI may be able to assist with that. The downfall is, I think, with the human interaction. The one thing that I see with all the hybrid, high flex classes is when you're done with that class, you turn off your monitor. I know from my experience from when I was a student was I might have learned more walking up to that professor after the class and getting 2 minutes one-on-one. And that's, I think, where we're going to lose some of that personal interactions, that one-on-one experience where I can't ask AI. The AI won't see that I'm in the back of the room with my hands over my eyes, overwhelmed. Maybe it will, but right now I don't think it will. So I think that's where we're kind of where we're more worried that we may not get that interaction, that heartfelt interaction.
So I'm going to bring us back to early 90s when I was doing AI. My specialty was computational linguistics, and I was working on spell checkers, right? And spell checkers were like magic at the time, right? I don't think anyone would think of a spell checker as AI today. at all, right? So I think my prediction for 2030 is that a lot of these technologies are going to continue to have a fantastic positive impact in every aspect of what we do in higher ed. You know, administrative efficiencies, the ability to have better understanding of what's going on at our universities, whether it's students or otherwise. And on the academic side, I think people are just going to incorporate these tools as part of the teaching and learning. And they're just going to become a tool and a set of tools that we use. And we're also going to learn to live with the risks, and we're going to get smarter about using them. So generally positive, but I think we're not going to talk about them as like these digital pixie dust that, you know, the way we talk about them today.
And Lori, you also have your hand up?
Do. So, yeah, optimistically, you know, all kinds of things people have said, but then in addition, their AI will be able to generate 3D virtual worlds on the fly that we'll be able to access with lightweight wearables. And there will be ways for us to have really kind of you know, like vibrant hybrid and high flex environments, teaching environments and learning environments, so that I'll be able to interact with my students and see and know and have a conversation with them and have like real interpersonal human contact with them. So like that's like part of the and also I'll be able to create, you know, a custom agent of myself that will be able to answer a lot of questions and maybe do some grading for me, and, you know, like some of those kinds of things. So like, you know, maybe there'll be some things like that. Now my dystopian, this one I've thought about a lot, right? So in my dystopian, pessimistic, real genuine concern, like all kidding aside, I am fearful that there will be a real split, and that there will be some real tendency to see economic expediency for automating and using AI for a lot of ways to, you know, economize and make it so that there are more online and procedurally generated teaching and education experiences, and things will just be like good enough or whatever. And that at a time when students and people need to be learning and working on their soft skills and their communication and their empathy and all of those things, that there'll be a growing divide, that there will be elite institutions that will continue to really work on those kinds of, you know, human-only experiences and human skills, and that there will be other people who will be left behind, and inequity and inequality will only get worse. So like that's a genuine concern and fear I have, and I'm worried that institutions will be tempted by cost saving, especially in this time of, like, you know, the enrollment cliff and all of that. So that's the dystopian, but I'm going to try to think about the good stuff.
Well, thank you, Laura, for bringing it up. I think, David, you had your hands up, and then you were going to go to Russell and then to Sia. Thank you.
Sure, and I'll try to be brief, because I know we're running short on time. But I suppose my observations are less specific to EDU, just sort of extrapolating the past 2 years forward, which is, you know, a lot of this stuff was in the lab for years, and 2 years ago, the exponential curve got interesting. And if you had told me the things I'd be doing with AI right now 2 years ago, literally 2 years ago, because ChatGPT was just hitting the market, I would have thought it was magic. That if you remember, back during the last presidential campaign, there were talks about automation and AI, but it was in the context of self-driving trucks. And to think that we thought it would come sort of for the bottom first, and it's actually come from the top and more of the creative and generative arts, I am stunned by that. That just where we are now, where we were 2 years ago. So looking forward, especially to a year like 2030, I guess my only thought would be we need to be adaptable, that we're not going to really be able to predict where this is going to go. You know, if you follow folks like Ray Kurzweil, who I've been following for decades, we are on that exponential curve, and things are going to get very interesting very quickly. So I'm buckling up for the ride. I don't really have much to say beyond, the next year in the EDU space.
Thank you,
Russell?
David.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Russ Boschman. I'm assistant professor of cybersecurity at Roger Williams University, and I'm also the program manager for the Institute of Cybersecurity and Emerging Technology at Rhode Island College. And so my question, or maybe comment, comes from the area of ethics, as we've sort of been talking a little bit about, or at least has been the underlying question or topic here about AI. When I look at for my students, I look at this new wave of jobs that are coming out, right? Where these AI or LLM AI trainers, right? They're paying $45 an hour. And if you go to, Indeed, or you go to LinkedIn, and you can find any number of these, and they're international, national, international, all over the place, right? And so my concern about ethics comes from a cybersecurity point is how do we mitigate poisoning attacks, right, in large language learning models? And if you get a group of, I think of DDoS attacks, right, and so now light bulbs, right, can bring down a network or a server, as we saw with Philips Hue. So if we get 1,000 or 10,000 people together and we're training a specific LLM and we're poisoning it with fake data, is there a body, or should there be a body, maybe even globally, that monitors this, so that we don't get, so that reality itself doesn't become a deep fake in 2030. And I don't know if anyone's talking about that yet, or if there's somebody or some group that somebody knows. I'd be very interested and open to conversing about that very topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. I think we could continue to talk for another hour or two. There's so much to discuss. We are at 12:59. Sia, you had your hand up, but maybe you can place your comments in chat, or we can share them with the rest of the audience separately. I just wanted to say thank you again very much. We'd like to continue the conversation because obviously there are still open questions. The one on ethics was going to be, if we had time, I definitely was going to bring that up because that's such an important question. We were also going to share the results of a survey that we put out, and we can certainly share that separately. Thank you to those of you who did fill out the survey. Feel free to connect with anyone else here on LinkedIn. If you need a connection, you're looking for a name and we can help you out, just reach out just reply to the reminder emails that were sent, or just post right at Meetup. We're happy to help you out. And again, if you want to share any resources with the rest of the group, please do so on Meetup or reach out to one.
One thing I want to mention before we go is, given the depth and breadth of this topic, I think we are planning on doing a follow-up very soon. So if that's of interest to everyone, then we will definitely be reaching out to folks as soon as this call ends to see how we can prepare for our next one. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, once again, thank you so much, and a special thank you to the panelists for all your advice and insights. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.